So this chapter, we're going to be working with finances. And we're working with finances, then we have to know how to deal with decimals and percentages, because a lot of our financial decisions and situations deal with percentages or interest rates, and things like that. So we have to understand the few of the basics. So these three things, you've got percentages, fractions, and decimals. They should all, if you have one, you should be able to find the other. They all are like different ways to represent the same value. I keep going back to the example that I give you about you can have a $1 bill, or you can have 4 quarters, or you can have 20 nickels, or you can have 10 dimes. Those all are values that have the same value. They will purchase the same amount of merchandise. They're just simply in different forms. Same thing is true here. They give us this percentage, 0.4%. That percentage can be changed to a fraction, and it can also be rewritten as a decimal. I've listed it in the order that I think is easiest to do. Anytime you have to change a decimal, anytime you have to change a percent into a decimal, I think it's easiest to go to the fraction first. So if you have a percentage, you're simply going to take the number of the percentage, take the number, leave the percent sign off. You're going to take this number right here, which is 0.4, and you're going to write it over 100, because that's what percent means. It means out of 100. So we're going to take 0.4 out of 100. Now that we've changed that to a fraction now, and you can then simply pull up a calculator and do that division problem right there, 0.4 divided by 100, and it will give you the decimal value. If you have mental math, you can also do it. If you take 0.4 and divide it by 100, it's just going to get smaller by 2 zeros. So I know that it's going to come out to be, excuse me, 0.004. So I pulled up Desmos Scientific Calculator to show you that if you just simply type in the fraction that I have written down over here, the 0.4 divided by 100, you get 0.004. The mental math that I did, I took the decimal that was right here and I moved it 2 places to the left, because I was dividing by 100. And so if I was dividing by 1,000, I would move it 3 places to the left. If I was dividing by 10, I'd move it 1 place to the left. I move it the same number of places to the left as I have zeros. So yes, it's always going to move it to the left 2 places, because I'm always going to be dividing by 100 for decimals. So the correct answer here is 0.004. Okay, let's see. Same thing. I would do oh, it's not the same thing. This time they're giving me a decimal. So they want a decimal. They give me the decimal, 0.7. And they want me to change that to a percentage. To change that to a percentage, you multiply by 100. You take that number right there, multiply by 100, and you simply add the percent sign. So 7 times 100 is going to be 70%. And then if you need to write that as a fraction, of course, you would take the number that's the percentage, 70, put it over 100. And then I didn't say this, but you should always reduce. I didn't say reduce in this example right here because I knew that we were going to go ahead and do the division. But if they ask you for a fraction, you would reduce that, and I think it would reduce to 7/10. So 0.7 is the decimal value of 70%, and 70% is the percentage of 7/10. So they want the percentage right here, so we're going to move that to 70. We don't have to put the percent sign in because it's after that little box. So we just type in the number 70. And here they're giving you directions for taking a fraction and turning it into a percentage, which I believe is what I had right here. You take the fraction, you turn it into a decimal, and then you turn it into a percentage. So the fraction, to take this fraction 3/4, you're going to do the other thing that a fraction represents. A fraction represents the part out of the whole. So it's 3 parts, and it takes 4 parts to make a whole. It's also 3 divided by 4. And so if you go to a graphing calculator and you type in 3 divided by 4, it changes it to a decimal for you. 3 divided by 4 is 0.75. So that fraction right there becomes 0.75. And if you didn't understand that that meant divide, you might want to say 3 divided by 4. And you can do it longhand or you can use a calculator, but that gives you the decimal. And then just like we did a while ago, to change that decimal in the points, to change the 0.75 into a percentage, you multiply by 100. So you're going to do 0.75 times 100, and that's going to give you 75%. So the correct answer, oh poo, the point answer right here, divide 3 by 4 and multiply the quotient by 100 and attach a percent sign. So that was the process. Number 6 is another fraction. They want you to take 4 fifths, so I'm going to do 4 divided by 5, and I'm going to use a calculator to do that. 4 divided by 5, that gives me 0.8, and then I take that 0.8 and change it to a percentage by doing 0.8 times 100, and 0.8 times 100 equals 80. And that will be 80%. 80%. Here's another problem where they ask you to take a decimal and write it as a percent. So here are the instructions that I'm going to use. These are the instructions. Okay, when I have a decimal, I take the decimal, I multiply it times 100, and then that becomes 0.1. Oh, my bad. Sorry, I didn't multiply it times 100. Multiply the decimal times 100, and it's going to move the decimal 2 places. Or, of course, you can pull up this and do 0.18. 0.18 times 100. You're going to get 18, but be sure you put the decimal behind it. That's 18%. And then to change that to a fraction, you put the 18 over 100 and reduce. And the calculator will do that as well. 18 divided by 100. It's going to automatically change it to a decimal, which is what we started with. If you press this little convert button, it gives it to you as a reduced decimal. And it looks like what happened is the 2's divided out. 9 times 2 is 18, 50 times 2 is 100, so the 2's divided out. So 18 over 100 reduces down to 9 over 50. And I believe that's, no, they wanted a percent, so I didn't even have to do that last part. That is 18. They put the percent sign after it, so I don't have to. And this problem, they ask you to change 64% into a decimal. So I'm going to do, use the notes that I gave you, and I'm going to change and rewrite that as 64 over 100. And then I'm going to divide 64 divided by 100. You divide 64 by 100, and that's just going to move the decimal 2 places. Or, of course, you could use the calculator, and the calculator will tell you the same answer. 64 divided by 100 comes out to be 0.64. So type in 0.64.